Whoa, we just finished watching Alien Romulus. Whew, did we enjoy that? Yes, I sure did.
I am not a horror person, and I enjoyed the film. I'm not going to give anything away.
Okay, no spoilers?
No spoilers at all. I thought it was a fantastic scare. And they saved the best for last.
It was consistent.
It was ramping up. I thought the film was quite strong, especially like as an homage, something like respectful of the original films, particularly the first film. I thought it did a nice job of balancing the style of the old one mixed with modernness, because it didn't go full old style like what Ridley Scott did in part 1, because I don't think that would work as effectively today. They updated it for the times. You ever see Blade Runner 2049?
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like Blade Runner 2049 was too faithful to the old style.
Agreed.
This did what I feel like Blade Runner 2049 should have done, which is update that style.
It was totally masterful. It was executed so intelligently. All the technology, the world building, it was insane. There were only 2 parts where I was like, oh, the CGI, weird that they skimped there, but okay. But everything else was just masterful to me. I was really surprised.
You should touch your face, by the way. Oh my God. Now you know the challenges of a Chara Kirk.
You know?
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. There were 2 things with CGI that really bothered me as well. And it gave me this uncanny valley sort of vibe. And I was like, oh man, like everything else is so strong, like the effects. Yeah. The effects in this movie are so good. I'm so used to sequels being awful. For instance, there hasn't been a single Jurassic World film that has measured up remotely to Jurassic Park. Whereas this, I felt like, oh my gosh, like this, it really feels like it's in line with what Ridley Scott had done. And this had me holding my breath sometimes. I thought that there were some moments that were like, how are they gonna get out of this? And then the creative ways that they handled it, it started to get a little bit Jumpy the Sharky a little bit, but I was going with the movie. I'm like, fuck it, this is too much fun. Like, I thought that it was very creative and new and it was like a fresh take. The big thing for me that bothered me was how much you see the aliens.
I could see that, but I feel on the older Alien movies, that's consistent with what we've been seing, because we did get to see them quite a bit. So this is just kind of a like, look how much more detail we can do now. Even though it was spectacularly designed before, this one I feel like they got to tweak it even that much more.
And take it to another level?
Yeah, but still stay consistent with what we've been seeing.
I can see what you're saying there.
Yeah.
It did a phenomenal job of like bringing me into this world and making me feel for these characters. From a sound design perspective, I will say I didn't understand most of the dialogue in the first half of the movie.
Good point. I don't know if it was just because their accents sometimes, or if the audio was just kind of low. I definitely struggled with that too.
Apparently quite a few people did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like...
It needs subtitles.
I look at that as what I have dubbed the Christopher Nolan effect. With the exception of something like Oppenheimer, where you need to understand the dialogue and it's crucial to the story. With Nolan films in particular, generally speaking, you don't necessarily always need to understand what's being said. It's more about just the mood. And I definitely got a mood while watching this.
It's very graphic.
Oh, yes. Yes.
If you know what I mean.
Very much, yes. Which
is not new, again, to the alien world. It's always been very phallic and very oozy, gooey.
While it was violent, the violence was poignant in that it emphasized moments. I was concerned going into this movie that it was just going to be non-stop gore, but I could see right away that it wasn't really just squarely focused on gore. It was using gore and that kind of violence to just emphasize an impact button certain scenes, certain moments in the story. And that made it more effective for me, because when the gore happened, it felt more visceral. Versus something like Saw 5, it was like just non-stop gore. After a while, you get desensitized to it. Whereas here, whenever there was violence, it still bothered me. Like I said earlier, the only thing that kind of like harmed the experience was the uncanny valley moments and just seeing too many aliens or it becoming too much of an action fest. But you know what, to what you said a moment ago, I'll rescind that a little bit, because Aliens, the James Cameron one, is definitely more of an action movie than the first Alien, which is more quiet and creepy.
Right. I was asking someone if it was a good standalone.
Yeah. No, I was just pointing it at you.
I think it could be. Mm-hmm. If someone was completely new to the world and had no idea what was happening, it would still be solid by itself.
Yeah, there's definitely things in the film that are better understood if you have seen for at least the first Alien. There's stuff in there where you're like, oh, it's like calling back. But the film is not bogged down with that.
No.
If you haven't seen them, you'll be all right. but it's better if you've seen them. A lot of the horror films that I saw growing up, and even in the last 15 years, it's like horror films just felt like they were super genre specific and just like, oh, people just want violence and gore. And it wasn't really scaring me with allowing there to be a creepy buildup and a creepy vibe. This doesn't come out the gate, trying to just like be blood and guts. It's very unsettling. It feels like a slow burn initially, but then things just ramp up and ramp up and ramp up all the way to the end.
You keep calling it horror, and to me, I don't know why that's not clicking. I mean, there were scary moments, but maybe because to me it was really a great sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it's sci-fi horror.
Yeah. Like, I didn't feel super tense or scared.
Really? I totally did.
I felt like anxiety.
Yeah, well, that. Yeah.
But not like a, oh my God. Like,
oh, the
like
film had...
Some of the horror movies you make us watch, sir, are like super uncomfortable. And I think this was more disturbing. So maybe it's a psycho thriller to me.
Yeah, I was definitely disturbed.
Like, a lot of disturbing things happening.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a, like every time,
I guess that's fair. No one was screaming in the theater, so you're right about that. It was definitely more of an unsettling feeling throughout the film, but I like that better than like jump scares every 5 seconds, because I remember watching like The Ring and hearing the audience's response to that film and like the scares, but I like this so much better in that it gets under my skin. And like I said with the violence, it's used very effectively, and when it happens, it's like, oh dear God. It's along the lines of Event Horizon in terms of unsettlingness and like the imagery being graphic and being used effectively. The one area where maybe it falls short is I didn't get a chance to truly care about everyone in the team. I cared about 2 people, and that was it. Maybe that's a flaw. I should care about more people so that when they die, I feel more empathy towards them.
I think what I like about this movie, specifically with that, is that the actors did a really good job, and it didn't make me go, oh, that was a bad choice. It makes me immediately, like any problem I have, immediately I go, why did they choose that? There has to be a reason, just because of how meticulous they were with everything else. Mm-hmm. Like I said, the world building, the props, the technology, everything seemed really cared for and like they paid attention to.
For Last of Us fans, I would have casted this actress for Ellie based on her age, her physicality, her acting. I was like, oh, that would have been my Ellie. I really liked David Jonnson. I thought his acting was on point. I think that he's going to be the person who stands out the most when it's all said and done as like the performance you remember. I'm like watching him and I'm studying him, and it's just phenomenal stuff, because I thought that his acting was the most thoughtful. Again, I wanted to emphasize the effects in this film. Effects are so strong. 2 uncanny valley things, but otherwise the effects are very, very strong. And they needed to be, especially for the last 20 minutes. The only reason why you feel the things you do watching this film, towards, at least for me, is the effects were so strong. That's it for now. I'm Jaby. This is
Vivian Day.
Peace out.